My name is Ty Trumbull, and I handle the content here at Acquira. We wanted to talk to you today about our Accelerator program. The Accelerator is our stem to stern acquisition process that teaches you how to source and vet potential small business deals, takes you through acquiring a business, helps you create post acquisition growth, and eventually provides an opportunity to exit that business for more than what you paid for it. The Accelerator is a multi-year engagement with a lot of steps along the way. So to break down what's involved throughout the process, I sat down with Acquira Director of Revenue, Daniel Elizondo. Here's our conversation. So we're here with Daniel Elizondo. Daniel, could you introduce yourself, what your role is at Acquira, and how you came to be at Acquira?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, my name is Daniel Elizondo. I'm a partner at Acquira and also responsible for all of the initial activities that lead to the acquisition of a business by an acquisition entrepreneur. That includes marketing, sales, communications, training, developing materials, and coaching as well.
Great. And who is Acquira for people that aren't familiar with us?
That's a good question. Acquira, it's an accelerator and also private equity. So we provide support, professional services to acquisition entrepreneurs who want to acquire, integrate, grow, and exit a small business. And we, depending on case by case basis, be interested on joining them as equity partners.
Okay. You know, the main thing we're here to talk about today is the Accelerator. So could you walk through the Accelerator program, what's included, just what people can expect from the program?
Yeah, the Accelerator is our premier program that guides an acquisition entrepreneur, takes them through these steps we've been talking about. The acquisition of a small business, the integration, growth, and exit. What you can expect is support throughout the entire process and facilitation.
Okay. What sort of support do we provide to acquisition entrepreneurs?
Well, for example, initially, once a person is interested in signs up for a program, through a success coach, we guide them, individually through understanding their investor thesis, what kind of business they want to acquire, how that aligns with our strategy and sweet spots, industry, geographic location, deal size, and take it from there through our training materials initially, right, towards the investment committee, so they can present deals to the investment committee. Once they have assimilated the methodology, the process, and start working on it, take them through a face-to-face 2-day workshop where they can, go deeper into their thesis and understand in more detail some of these materials and some of the discussions that need to understand in depth. For example, how to make evaluation of a business, how to analyze the risks of a business, which we call the investment thesis, and how that investment thesis has an impact on the valuation of a business. How to go over the letter of intent, how to negotiate that, right? How to go through the due diligence process, which is the validation between, the LOI and the final closing of the conditions of a business. How to go about financial due diligence, quality of earnings, how to go about discussions with your legal or the legal advisor of the acquisition entrepreneur, how to go about all of those negotiations, how to go about financing, what financial structures are better, right? How to go about SBA lending or other alternatives, all the way to closing. That is just at the beginning. And then post-closing, it's about integration, right? So where the business is today, that is through a process is audited and scored the current situation of a business in terms of its efficiencies, how the business completes certain processes, what opportunities it represents, and how our team of professionals, integrator, and specialists help to improve each one of these frameworks in finance operations, people and culture, revenue, and overall governance and strategy. Therefore,
Hmm.
after the implementation and these changes to the business, it is in a much better position to continue and accelerate its growth and obviously its value towards a possible divestment or exit 3 to 4 years after the business is acquired. So, all in all, that shortens a process that normally would take a person or an acquisition entrepreneur 8 years or 7 to nearly 4.
Hmm. That was actually my next question was that how long does the process take? It's a very comprehensive process.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So normally the first part, the acquisition, it's a process that could take in average 6 to 7 months. Some people take up to 12 months. But we have also some other people who have acquired their business in only 4 months. So it depends a lot on how much time the acquisition entrepreneur can dedicate, how fast they work, because we are here to help them, in the capacity they can. So that is just for the first phase. So let's say in average 6 to 7 months, um, and then post acquisition, the integration may take from 6 to 9 months in average. But you would expect to see results probably after 18 to 24 months where you start see the growth. um, and yeah, the change may start right away, not immediately, but perhaps after 1 or 3 months. So you're looking at probably the last 18 months to 24 months of this period to increase the earnings and revenues, of course, of a business, and obviously its valuation once it's on a more solid foundation.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So it is a multi-year engagement.
It is. However, the exit or divestment of a small business does not mean necessarily an end of the relationship with our partners. We expect and we will be happy if they want to repeat, the acquisition, go for a larger acquisition once they, multiply, their equity investment, or
Hmm.
during that period of time of 3 to 4 years also perform additional tuck-ins, right? So all of that is a
Hmm.
possibility, and we encourage highly our acquisition entrepreneurs to do additional acquisitions for sure.
Hmm. That's great. You also mentioned someone that acquired a business in only 4 months, which is a relatively fast time frame compared to what we planned for. Could you talk a little bit about that instance, that person's story?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I am happy to say that I was the success coach of
Mm,
of this person. So I'm very happy. And there were several key moments of which I can mention one. Um, as I mentioned, as I said, we wanted the acquisition entrepreneur going over the training or methodology, the process materials, even before we kick off any of market deal search. Um, and he took a couple of deals from the market and present them to me. Presented others, but these two were um, relevant. He developed a lot of relationships with business brokers, established very good communication, for which also we provide training and coaching for that. And for one of these two businesses, he said, "Okay, I guess I'm going to take this one to the investment committee, just as a practice, because at the end of the day, the asking price and the initial valuation are too far apart. So it
hmm.
would be a good exercise and practice, but it's not going to be more than that." And I told him, well, If that is the only point you see as a concern, then let me ask you, what happens if the the price could be reduced, or if under further analysis the valuation will be higher, and then you have the possibility of closing that gap? Think about this seriously. What if this business, other than the price, could
Mhm,
be, a good opportunity? Take it seriously.
mhm,
Well, he did, and that was the business he ended up closing on. And it's a fantastic business,
mhm.
believe me.
You mentioned off-market sourcing, but obviously a big part of our training talks about, looking at on-market deals. Could you talk a little bit about the difference between off-market and on-market and sort of what the amount of work that it entails for the acquisition entrepreneur?
Yeah. Um, the on-market deals are posted for sale through different platforms, and yeah, we definitely provide guidance and coaching for the acquisition entrepreneur to look at those opportunities, and they're expected. The acquisition entrepreneur is expected to work on market deals and opportunities.
Hmm.
Additionally, we prepare according to the acquisition entrepreneur investor profile a list of businesses that could also fit into the same profile. These businesses are not for sale, so we start calling them and see if any of these will be interested on conducting, negotiations or possibly selling. Uh, and then, yeah, from time to time, sellers or business owners may say, yeah, I may be interested. So those where we take, following, of course, the acquisition entrepreneurs investor profile, we take the lead on contacting and then introducing to the acquisition entrepreneur as additional possibilities of acquiring a business. So with both, as this is a uh, a game of numbers, the opportunities increase.
Hmm. That's great. And you mentioned that you happen to be the success coach for that person that closed a business in 4 months. What is a success coach? What can people expect?
Well, yes, for some people have been a success coach, but we have also other competent professionals that as well work as success coaches. And what they can expect is first, good understanding of the entire process, good understanding, clarification of the materials, um, also one-on-one support for any questions or areas where the acquisition entrepreneur may not feel as strong, follow up and
Hmm.
guidance, and also support during negotiations or any point where the acquisition entrepreneur may feel uncomfortable of tackling, right? So this does
Hmm.
not the coaching does not replace the acquisition entrepreneur's work by any means. It does enhance it or point them in the right direction. Also,
Hmm.
coordinates internally uh, within Acquira if other resources are needed. For example, the off-market deal search, the investment committee, okay, or other additional sets of eyes that, depending on what is the point in question, need to bring additional specialists or professionals. Mhm.
Right, right. And we train people how to find a company, how to vet a company, and at a certain point in the training, they're expected to bring a deal to our investment committee. What is the investment committee? What does that look like for people that aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, they are encouraged to bring as many deals as they possibly can to the investment committee, as long as
Hmm.
they are within the investor thesis, they're related, and they have done their preliminary work on them.
Hmm.
Basically, it's presenting a series of documents and information on a preliminary analysis, so they can have feedback from other industry and M&A experts to whether this deal looks with good potential in terms of its pricing, in terms of other variables related to risk, or risk versus reward or return. And if it does make sense, then, or if it's missing, some information, or if it's not really a great proposition, well, just provide feedback. So with additional sets of eyes, we have 99%, up to say 100% of the acquisition entrepreneurs walking away very, very happy and satisfied because of a, questioning, right? So the purpose
Mm-hmm.
is not to, put in a spot anyone. It's just to be more critical and try to poke holes, on the
Mm-hmm.
on the deal to see if it's really solid and if it has legs, right? And then,
Mm-hmm.
continue towards perhaps a little bit more analysis and details before presenting a letter of intent. Also, whether it
Mm-hmm.
does make fit into a joint or partnering strategy for long-term engagement, which is post-acquisition, integration and divestment.
Mm-hmm. And the term investment thesis has come up a few times.
Yes.
What is an investment thesis, and how does Acquira help people define their own individual investment thesis?
So the investor thesis, it's a collection of variables that the acquisition entrepreneur has intrinsically. So they are,
Mm-hmm.
for example, not willing to look at businesses out of the state, or they are, or they are industry agnostic, or depending on their availability of resources for for an equity injection, they may consider a business of a certain size. So there are some
Mm-hmm.
variables, and also those relate in a way to some of the background, professional background and preferences of the acquisition entrepreneur. So that is what we call investor profile. There's
Mm-hmm.
also the deal investment thesis, which is a collection of risk factors related to the business. For
Mm-hmm.
example, what could be a risk factor? Let's say a key man risk. If the current owner
Mm-hmm.
or seller, you know, it's a key person in the business, and with that person transitioning out, the business may suffer, to keep, let's say, relationships with customers or the license to operate. So this is just one of nearly a couple dozen um, risks that we strongly recommend to analyze and we review together with the acquisition entrepreneur. And
Mm-hmm.
depending on how the business scores, for each one of these risks, for which obviously we provide a specific guidance, very detailed guidance, then the valuation um, of the business is adjusted up or down, starting,
Mm-hmm.
uh, from market, let's say benchmark, to say, well, businesses like these are usually, sold, by this amount, depending on their financial and other variables. So they could be initially presented, with a price. So after the investment thesis, risks are analyzed, maybe, that valuation is adjusted, right? Basically, the
Mm-hmm.
valuation is, in this case, completed through multiple analysis. So the multiple could be penalized or enhanced to a higher valuation.
Mm-hmm. And once you find an internal price that is greater than the asking price, you found yourself a
Yeah.
pretty good deal.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you say that, for example, your valuation is indicating that the business may be worth more than the asking price, then you say, well, this looks like a great deal. Or if it's the other way around, then you say, am I missing something in my valuation because this business seems to be
Mm-hmm.
overpriced? There got to be some factors here that I am not looking at. Or maybe you
Mm-hmm.
find some, you know, green, yellow, red, black flags that disqualify the deal. That's a purpose, because there are some risks
Mm-hmm.
that cannot be mitigated, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
better to just walk away and do not purchase a problem.
Right. Now, the workshop is a pretty pivotal moment for acquisition entrepreneurs going through the acceleration program. Why is that? What is the workshop, and what do people go through at the workshop?
Yeah, it's a very, very important moment for various reasons. One is that we get to know each other in person, right? So when we look someone in the
Mm-hmm.
eye, that is the basis to establish, the potential and the future partnership. So the idea is to build trust, which doesn't happen overnight. And meeting in person is important, as well as going deeper into certain topics that are more easily, I'll say, discussed in a group setting, and then going interactively over, questions and answers on different things. Any points of this entire process: acquisition, integration, exit. So everything is there for discussion. And often, what the acquisition entrepreneurs realize is a modification of what they initially thought they wanted to acquire. Modification of their investor, thesis or investor profile, to say, well, then I may be willing to consider a little bit of a larger business because it's going to have these kind of variables in place, and it's going to be maybe more expensive, but they should rather purchase the right deal, for a higher price, right, than the wrong
Mm-hmm.
deal for the right price, right?
It's that
I
Warren
believe
Buffett quote. Better to buy a better to buy a good company at a fair price than a fair company at a good price.
there you go. That's the exact quote.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the point.
Mm-hmm. And you're an acquisition entrepreneur yourself, right? And one of the things we pride ourselves on at Acquira is sort of updating and evolving our training as time goes by. And one of the more recent additions to our training is the last mile. And that used to be a sticking point for some people. What is the last mile, and what does that entail?
Yeah. So for the process that takes the acquisition entrepreneur towards the acquisition, we added, very detailed process or train materials that take the acquisition entrepreneur from the LOI to closing,
Mm-hmm.
explaining a number of topics that complement the program that was available or is still available,
Mm-hmm.
that takes you from the lead to the LOI. So the last mile
Mm-hmm.
is these lessons that take place after the LOI is accepted.
Mm-hmm. All the way until you finally close on the business.
That is correct. And then there's an overlap when the acquisition entrepreneur, the deal is heading to a closing, the introduction of the integrator. So it is
Mm-hmm.
anticipated, and then it's a seamless transition post acquisition into the integration.
And that integration is provided through the ACE framework.
That is
Could,
correct.
could you talk about the ACE framework and the individual frameworks and what's involved there?
Yep. In a similar manner to the acceleration program and the last mile, the ACE framework materials help to improve the conditions of the business. In this
Mm-hmm.
case, similar to the success coach, there's an integrator that you know helps the acquisition entrepreneur to start making these changes in the key areas of the business: sales and marketing,
Mm-hmm.
that we call revenue; also operations and finance, that need no further clarification; uh, people and culture, and that's how we call, some other companies call it HR, but we believe it's
Mm-hmm.
more than HR. So it's people and
Mm-hmm.
culture, which is critical, is key to the success of a company. And of course, governance and strategy, overall strategy of the
Mm-hmm.
business. So each one of the frameworks is very detailed, providing the guidance to im- identify, improve, the processes, and have templates and all the necessary documents to change the practices of the business, including, of course, reporting, building a leadership team, and 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 changing the way the business works and the business profits. So
Mm-hmm.
that is establishing the foundations for the business to scale up and change from an owner run business to a management run business. There is where we
Mhm.
say to our acquisition entrepreneurs, then you can, if you want, you know, kind of sit back a little bit, right, and be semi-absentee, because sometimes people, come to us with the idea of making an absentee, semi-absentee investment, and we tell them that's not the case. You first need to work, really hard with the acquisition and then with the integration before you think of stepping back or, allowing your management team to run the company. So that is very
Mhm.
important to keep in mind, um, because if the acquisition entrepreneur is just looking for an investment and not for putting time, then we probably would not recommend the acquisition or the partnership.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right. We've said, in the past that we don't like to leave a job unfinished, and the work of the acquisition entrepreneur isn't really finished until the point where they can make an exit from their business. You've talked a bit about exit and divestment. What does that mean for acquisition entrepreneurs? How does Acquira help acquisition entrepreneurs get to that point?
Yeah. So for selected deals, and this is to be mutually agreed upon the party, upon the parties, um, the possibility of Acquira uh, ac- purchasing the deal or the company post integration from the acquisition entrepreneur is there through a
Hmm.
warrant mechanism. So they're pre agreed higher prices for the business. And also, of course, that as Acquire has been involved in the acquisition and integration, there is high likely that a warrant will be exercised, which gives the possibility of an exit to the acquisition entrepreneur. But as I said, that is not the end of a partnership, because during that time there could be talking additional acquisitions, right? Or even post acquisition, there is a possibility of larger acquisitions, right? So all of this is encouraged, in and and it leads to a bigger, brighter, professional development and wealth increase of acquisition entrepreneur. Of course, Acquira, benefits from that acquisition as well, as they built a portfolio of companies that operate under certain standards and profitability.
Hmm. That's great. Do you think we missed anything about the accelerator that you'd like to talk about?
No, I think we have covered everything. Uh, what I would say is that Acquire has great experience in business acquisition and
Hmm.
growth, and that certainly some deals have been not perfect. There have been struggles, but no deals have failed. So that
Hmm.
is how comfortable we feel about, you know, supporting others and providing coaching for others um, to make investment. There is no guarantee of any kind that they are going to find a business, they're going to acquire a business, they're going to profit. Investing on a business is a risk, but the
Hmm.
idea is to try to reduce that risk that cannot be eliminated, or try to reduce it as much as possible, and make of that business that normally smaller businesses have a higher profitability given a higher profile risk, then the risk is managed, or walk away from it, do not purchase it, right? So
Hmm.
that is the idea, to manage the risk, to reduce risk, and still benefit or increase benefits from a greater profitability.
Hmm. And we love to share what we've learned along the way. No.
Yeah, yeah, we have done it. We have done very well, but we believe we others can benefit as well. So we
Hmm.
always look for a win-win, and we also accept whenever we have imperfections or opportunities, feedback that makes us better. That's how we got here. So we really
Right.
appreciate having partners and acquisition entrepreneurs that want to work hard and also want to have open communication and provide us with feedback on how to improve. No one is perfect. We understand that. and we're always trying to excel.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk us through this today, Daniel.
Absolutely, Ty. Anytime.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to our conversation today. If you'd like to learn more about the Accelerator program, including pricing, next steps, how to get started, please click the link below in the description, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Have a good day.